did the fire actually start? Tell us how it got going.
The fire actually got started way before our typical fire season. I mean, we're ready, we're getting ready, and we're thinking we have a month or two ahead of time before the lightning season starts. When a day very much like today, it was very cold, it was very dry, very high winds, and it caused some electrical lines just north and west of Waycross to spark.
It was started by a down power line. It had some high winds, and the power line hit the ground and caused a spark and a fire that ran eventually 12 miles into the northwest corner of the refuge.
And that wind that broke that power line, it just kept on. It was pushing a system in, and as that system continued, it brought in some thunderheads with it, and they swept down across the swamp, you know, of course fanned up the fire that was burning too, and as it swept down into the swamp, it popped some lightning in a line all down in the swamp. It lit up an area in Floyd's Island Prairie. It lit up a couple of spots out on Bugaboo Island, and at that point, you know, we had, you know, different fires going within the swamp itself.
And as we were doing that, another fire started just to the north and west of Fargo. And that, believe it or not, the railroad was fixing some rail lines, and they were just welding up their deal, and a spark hit, and that fire ran into about 30 or 40,000 acres in a couple of days.
It was something, you know. The one from outside moved into the swamp, the one that ignited inside the swamp grew enormously, and finally they all merged together into one big fire.
It's a natural thing, is it not?
Yes. Fire is in order for the swamp ecosystem to maintain itself as a swamp ecosystem, it has to have fire. Historically, I think if you look at the records, these big fires occurred, you know, roughly about every 20 to 30 years.
Of course, it spread all of that, you know, nitrogen all over the landscape. It was really interesting when the fire had passed. You could tell that everything had received this dusting of ash. The grass all around this, it never has been greener than it was, you know, later on that summer after the rainfall, you know, laid that ash down in the grass. It was, you know, it did what we know it does. It created a nutrient release that acted like a fertilizer to the entire ecosystem.
So fire is good for the swamp. What concerns us is when fire leaves the swamp, how it's going to affect private properties.
Now, while that may be good for the habitat, and that may be a good landscape changing event we need periodically, you know it's going to come out, and you know you've got serious obligations to our neighbors to do our best to keep it in the swamp. They love fire in the swamp, but they want to stay in the swamp.
If it's so fire dependent, why fight the fire?
They don't.
Oh, okay, so why don't you get into that?
Okay.
Like they contain it, but you know what I mean.
Right, that's primarily what's done. Yeah.
Well, the first important a fire break is basically taking a running strip of land and removing the vegetation to the point that it won't burn. It'll stop a fire. So we may just do that by mowing, but many times we'll run a light harrow just to scur up the surface. And the first time we do it is we really do it so we have manageable blocks of forest that we can burn.
The idea is to contain the fire within the wildlife refuge, where, you know, where it can burn, and frankly where it's pretty well impossible to fight it anyway. You know, you can get people injured or killed trying to, you know, because, I mean, it's jungle out there, literally. But what they do is they work to contain the fire within the refuge boundary and keep the fires off the industrial timberlands that sit adjacent to them.
It just gives us a better way to have fire in this environment and have sustainable economic development and good neighbors.